Hey, it's your BibaGirrrl again. Hope you've had a good week. Doing something a little different again this time. Today I have my husband Patrick here with us today, and we're gonna just be doing some discussing of different topics. If you like my videos, please hit thumbs up. And as well, if you're not a subscriber, please hit subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends and family and Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, wherever you share videos. That would be really great. Um, so we got into kind of like a little bit of discussion. I was going to be talking about Real Housewives, and then we sort of got into our own little discussion where I was asking him about like what he thought about reality TV and the kind of things that he prefers to watch versus like there's sometimes we meet in the middle in terms of what we like in terms of TV and movies and stuff, but then there's sometimes where he wants to watch what he wants to watch and I want to watch what I want to watch, and so we get to talking about like why we like what we like and that sort of thing. So one thing that I thought was a very interesting point was that you were saying how you like to be like in terms of sci-fi and in terms of action and fantasy type stuff. It's more like being able to completely be stuff that's completely different from real life.
Yes, um, it is a form of escapism, but it's not just escapism because it can also be a vehicle to take some real life issues
Mm-hmm.
that may be a little hard to discuss if you're putting it
Regular context.
in a regular context, and by forming kind of a separation.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of genre allows you to have a vehicle to explore concepts uh, that wouldn't be you would not be able to explore.
Like with Star Trek. With Star Trek, like playing, like it was basically the original premise of the original Star Trek was everybody that was on the ship, everybody that represented the world was actually representing the U.S. and the Klingons were like Russia in a way. Right.
Kind of like that.
And then later on with the Next Generation when they had things like when they were discussing things like the Pajorans and and it was actually the plot line. Here goes the train. It happens every Friday, every 15 minutes. But it was actually like the whole thing of Palestinians and Israelis, but it was actually being like played out as different planets
right,
and
like
different.
some recent examples being, say, the X-Men movies, the mutants and the humans. It's like as far as how does everyone get along and what tensions
Right.
are there, being kind of like how do different types of people get involved, and if there is something about you that is part of your personality, part of who you are,
It's different.
that's different. Uh, how does how people treat you make you relate to the rest of the world?
Mm-hmm.
Um, things like that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or movies like Avatar, where if you had a movie
It was basically
that
showing how.
if you had a movie that was set in the real world, where perhaps you'd have military force being used in a context like, say, for example, the modern Middle East, that would hit a little too close to home for people.
Right.
But
So you put it in
you
the
put it
context.
in a sci-fi context of this technologically advanced but environmentally insensitive culture tries to impose their will on another part of
Right.
in this case, a different planet. Those allow us to explore ideas like that without
Right.
without running into problems
Right.
as far as the audience's comfortability level.
Right, right. And but as well as they took the whole plot line of the Fern Gully. Did you ever see that? There was a video where they took a lot of the scenes of Avatar, and they took that Fern Gully cartoon, and I guess it was a movie at one point. And it was like, I don't know, Disney, or was that other competitive? There was some other competitive cartoon company that did cartoons in the 70s and 80s. And maybe it was Disney, but it was somebody else who did stuff. But I don't know who made Fern Gully. But anyway, they took scene by scene by scene of Fern Gully, of like the giant plant, and then there was a regular guy, and then the creatures and all this stuff. But it was almost so that. I don't remember if Fern Gully had something to do with environmental or not. I don't know. If anybody knows, let me know. Send me a message. But they did that side by side, and they said that. Was that I can't even remember. That wasn't Spielberg, was it? I can't remember. But whoever did Avatar, James Cameron, because it was that he had stolen that whole like scene by scene so from the cartoon, but they basically turned it and made it even like be more intense and made it be Avatar. And then it didn't even. I don't know. There was enough things about it that it was that people were like, well, who cares? But they still like the movie anyway. But yeah, I see what you're saying. So, but my thing about what I was talking about reality TV my point was that a lot of people see reality TV as an escape, because they see, like, let's say if somebody is like in a bad marriage, and they might not have had a lot of time to date, and then they can turn on The Bachelor, and then they can watch people be dating, or it's like all these like beautiful people, young people dating, and the whole thing of like, is the prince going to get the princess, or is it? And they're always in these beautiful locations, and that in itself is like you're kind of able to live out fantasies of maybe somebody never would think to date 25 guys at the same time, but here you can watch a show and watch somebody else dating 25 guys at the same time. So that is in itself a way of playing things out, but it's like in a safe environment. So, but I know for a fact that as soon as I turn that on, as soon as I turn The Bachelor, Bachelorette, Bachelor in Paradise, as soon as you hear, and I think it's the voices, because as soon as you hear those girls' voices, or even like some of the phrasing, like when somebody be like, my journey, or I don't know if is he really here for me, or is he some of these redundant.
Yeah, my style is less Gilmore Girls, more Gotham Girls.
Mm-hmm. Right. But what do you think about? Do you think that the glamorization of criminals, because it seems like we went from superheroes, idolizing the actual superhero, and saying, rah rah for Spider-Man, rah rah for Batman, rah rah for whoever, and then suddenly it becomes where that show is so much about the criminals, more because it's all about the darkness of before Batman became Batman, and he's still a kid, so it's so much. The whole show was about the criminals, and now we have Suicide Squad. So I'm like, I'm already like, to me, I'm like, it's already dark enough. Though I think, how can that be a fantasy? How can that be an escape? Because to me, I'm like, it's so much. The world is already dark enough as it is. Why do we have to glamorize these?
Well, first of all, it gives people an opportunity to let their dark side come out to play in a safe environment where there aren't any real consequences. So there is that aspect,
Mhm.
and that's why you get some people who gravitate towards that kind of thing. It's
Mhm.
the same reason you get people gravitate towards like slasher films and things
Right.
like that.
Right.
But I also think that it's a matter of things not being as cut and dry
Mhm.
anymore.
Mhm.
The world is shades of gray.
Right.
And, we see like a complicated uh, relationship between your decision making.
Mhm.
If you do this, does it make you a good guy? If you do that, does it make you a bad guy?
Right. Right.
Um, and crime dramas being
Right.
something that's really in now.
Right.
Oh,
But
well,
it's also if you think about it on reality shows, sometimes the villains or villainesses, like let's say the housewives. Say there's a housewife, say like there was Brandy on Beverly Hills, where she not only was like the most like volatile in terms of like either people loved her or they loved her speaking out and being bitchy or like just her bluntness or her you know just brandiness and then there were so many people who were like I can't stand her, she's just causing trouble. But there's sometimes people will root for. I'm amazed at how many people will be like when there's somebody who's just like a troublemaker, a total troublemaker, and just causes all kinds of drama and problems. How many people will root for the person that causes the problems? And maybe it's because they like the fact that they're calling out the people who they think are phony, but at the same time they're just like they side with the villain. They were the villainous in this.
well, two things are happening there.
Uh-huh.
First off is, like I said, it's an opportunity to vicariously live through the bad guy who's doing all the bad things
Mm-hmm.
that you would do if you weren't constrained by your better nature.
Ah, okay.
So that's part of it. And also another thing is when you have a villain that you love to hate,
Mm-hmm. Right.
that you can tweet about what awful thing they did.
Right.
It allows you to kind of wear the good guy badge by having a foil that you can play off of.
Mm-hmm.
People say that you can't have a good.
Yeah, I just want you all to see he's wearing his own T-shirt. Talked a while ago about his acting. He was in. This is a T-shirt from the first Dark Awakening Star Wars fan film that you can follow him. PJ Opitz YouTube channel, and from there you can see his demo reel. And they're going to start filming Dark Awakening 2. What is it, in the winter?
Coming next year.
Next year. It'll be out next year, but
in the meantime, you can catch the first 3 episodes of Dirt Old Superstition on the aforementioned YouTube channel.
On from your YouTube or from?
Yes, I do have the links on.
Oh, you have your links. Okay. And you have the links to Dark Awakening on there too?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So check out PG Opitz YouTube channel, and you can also follow him at PG Opitz. If you follow me on Twitter, I retweet a lot of his stuff, but he thought it was a good promotion with his own T-shirt. So
never waste an opportunity.
and then you've done some. You did like the thing for PBS, the PBS show.
The Sultan and the Saint.
Sultan and the Saint. So we have to look for that on PBS.
You'll see me for all of 2 seconds.
He was an extra on that, and then the thing that you did was and he just recently was in another ID Discovery show.
Yes, ID Discovery, the show Saved Season 2, a episode where I play one of the police officers who goes after a murderous mountain lion.
But it's supposed to be the mountains, but it was filmed in the woods.
Well, it was supposed to be the mountains of the Southwest, which look a little different than the mountains of western Maryland.
Yeah. So it's interesting how just ID Discovery and Discovery tends to film a lot in this area. I've noticed the gypsy shows. There's a lot of Maryland and West Virginia, and then and then of course the Amish, Breaking Amish is Pennsylvania. It's not too far. So they kind of, you'd be surprised how many things are being filmed in the what's now called the DMV, the District, Maryland and Virginia, and the DC area, and outlying states that are kind of like an hour or 2 hours drive. It's pretty amazing, you know. So yeah, getting back to what we're talking about sort of like anti-heroes, sort of like rooting for the anti-hero,
and also rooting against the anti-hero.
And rooting against the anti-hero.
If someone else that you're rooting against is the bad guy, by definition, that makes you the good guy. That's another aspect to it that gets attractive.
Right. Because there's always somebody who likes the person who calls out people on what I've noticed of reality. And one thing that for me is that, since as much as you might think that of course I'm often caught up in drama, but I'm not usually the person that calls people out. Like usually, like if we're in a situation and somebody says something outrageous, I'm usually so blown away that they said that, whatever they said, that I'm not the one that can come back with the snappy thing right away, or I'll usually just walk away because I'm just so blown away that somebody said that. So for me, even going back to like when Andy Cohen even started the Real Housewives shows, he was actually saying wanted to make a reality show that actually was kind of acting out the things that he had liked on TV growing up, which was shows like Dynasty, Dallas, where you had women who were two strong women that were polar opposites thrown together and kind of like telling each other off, or kind of, you know, creating drama or having drama between them. And he thought that was like their nighttime soaps or daytime soaps, Susan Lucci, you know. So he thought they were trying to combine reality TV, what was then reality TV, which was like Survivor and those kinds of things, and just kind of more or documentaries, but take a documentary and have it be about real life women who were those kinds of things. So my thing is that when I play back things in my head, even moments where people have said things to me personally, whatever, I'm always like the person. I'll just walk away, or it takes a lot for me to blow up, and it takes sometimes years. And as you've seen, sometimes with some of the drama that's happened in my own personal life. Sometimes, and the weirdest thing was, it was almost like when I met you, around within that year and a half period, that was sort of like a catalyst, because suddenly I was like, I kind of like I made all these changes, so like suddenly I had the nerve to be like, tell off all these people, enough, you know, and a lot of explosions.
Well, there's just the thing, you don't blow up,
right?
But you want to.
Right.
So when you see people doing it on television, TV, it's again that element of wish fulfillment.
Wish fulfillment, exactly. Or whether it's family. Get hold with the Dorinda thing. If you know,
people either say that life imitates art, or art imitates life.
Mm-hmm. So it's reality, not, to me, it's not a schadenfreude. Like some people say they do reality TV because it's all schadenfreude. Like it's always like saying, oh, I feel so much better about myself, about my own life, because these other people's lives, I can watch it and feel like my own life isn't as screwed up. And it's sort of like, I'd rather see people with their own lives being screwed up, or watching them be in pain, as opposed to me. But I don't see it that way. I've never seen it as, I don't get joy from seeing people going through terrible times. Like I mean, because there's a lot of junk that I don't watch, or there's a lot of stuff like let's say Teen Mom, or there's a lot of reality where it's just, or I don't know, you can't even, I say Honey Boo Boo, or some train wrecks that I can't even go there too, but when, especially the part of the reason why I got caught up in more of the Housewives, for a long time I didn't watch the Housewives, because for me it was just like an extension of what I saw in a salon every single day. Was all these wealthy women talking about their dramas and their families, and who was mad at which friend and who didn't get invited to what party. But it wasn't until I actually started to see when actually the shows changed themselves, because when the first few seasons of some of these shows, a lot of the women were just that. But when they went through other things, like going through divorces, or having major things happen in their lives, or dealing with health issues or financial issues, or especially when someone I knew was in one of the shows, of course was going to be interested in what was going on. I'm thinking, well, wow, this is pretty crazy that someone I know. But it was interesting that it was somebody I know, but they were doing the same thing that I knew them to do 30 years ago. So not much had changed there. So when you see people, when you're acting, are you feeling like you're kind of like you're taking on an extension of yourself, or are you taking on something that's more like you can kind of fulfill, you can kind of be something? Is it better to be something you're not, or is it?
Well, I'm never something I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you're acting, at least for me, it's kind of the same reason that people watch television as well. It's kind of wish fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
You can do things that you can't do in real life.
Mm-hmm.
You get into one of these scuffles like you see on the Real Housewives.
Mm-hmm.
On an everyday level. Next thing you know, you're being hauled off in the paddy wagon. So there's a big element of wish fulfillment in both watching people do what you'd like to do,
Right.
and also being able to do it in a safe environment.
Mm-hmm.
When I play a good guy, I take a piece of my personality
Mm-hmm.
and use that to construct the character by putting that into this character's experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing when I play a villain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I use those parts of me that that I usually don't let come out and play.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you know, Compartmentalize Dr. Jekyll, let Mr. Hyde come out to play this villain here, and then put him back in his cage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a playground where you can do whatever you want, and be
Mm-hmm.
whoever you want.
Mm-hmm. So sort of like, but when people see you, and they cast you in something, let's say if like when you were cast in certain things, and you were like, and now when we see it, like someone like, it's really funny for me to see him play certain roles, because especially like say your smart alecky roles, or certain things where, or certain things like where they have you say things where like you would never say that in real life. Like, the interesting enough, he in Dirty Old Superstition, he actually plays a character named Chad, and it's funny how he plays this preppy kind of jock, and he's kind of like a smartass, and then suddenly there's a Chad that was on The Bachelor, but the Chad on The Bachelor, and now he's on Bachelor in Paradise. The Chad on The Bachelor and Bachelor in Paradise is way like they takes it to such an extreme of like he's not even, it's like he's just totally he's sort, I don't know how would I can't even like total boorish, sexist, obnoxious, and then
Perhaps lunk is the word.
Yeah. No, that's not what I wasn't thinking lunk, but that does kind of. But the funniest thing is just you portraying the Chad. Like, there's never ever, I've never known a Chad in. I mean, nobody names their son Chad, and then I mean, I don't know of anybody Chads that are like quiet, kind of geeky, kind of like uh, young Harry Potter types. I think of Chads as always being jocks. I think of Chads as always being like kind of like clueless to whatever else is going on, but they want trying to get whatever they want. Kind of like a jock that's trying to be a big womanizer, or someone who drinks a lot of protein shakes.
It's interesting to see how audiences respond to certain characters. When I went in for my audition to play Luca in Sloan, basically my instructions were, make me hate you.
Oh, really?
So I was like, okay, this character needs to be as unattractive and as bad as I can possibly make him. So that's what I did.
But that was the farthest thing from what you were.
And then what we saw was audiences responded to that character because he was so over the top with what he did that
well, you were just a little you were a little sleazy. Right. You were a little on the sleazy side, and there wasn't anything that would make me hate you. Like, if anything, it was like it was so a lot of cliches, and it was a lot of very cheesy. But I guess anyone that, considering the rest of that movie, or that it's a 30-minute short film, and why it's not on YouTube is beyond me. But I wish that so at one point it was touring, and I think you can still see the preview on YouTube. And I don't know. I wish that the viewers out there could see this, but he still has a lot of his. He has the best clips of it on his demo reel, which is on his YouTube channel, so you can see that. But the fact that the last you were being like hateful in any way, you were just being like the guy who's uncovering all the dirt, and for the characters and for different things, and kind of sleazy. If anything, we hated the lead character, which is the girl who's flown, because you don't really sympathize with her all that much, because she's just not. They wrote her to be not all that likable, and but I think with that character, yeah, you were the comic relief. Because the funniest thing was all these people at when they had the premiere of this movie. The guys who were like the badass dudes, who played some of the badass dudes, were coming up to him going, "Man, dude, you cracked me up," all this stuff. I mean, everybody was laughing when we saw his scenes were on, and he was a comic relief, because it was, well, for one thing, it was just such a tense movie, and the other thing was that anyone who knows you not to say those things in that way, or to even be that kind of that person. So it was just so hysterical. But that's the same thing with you playing the Chad character. I mean, the Chad character is hysterical, because that's just not you. You're more quiet, and you contemplate everything, and you don't. I don't know you to have ulterior motives, and you're not sneaky, and so it just. And you are always more analytical, and the Chad stereotype of the Chad that he played, and all the other Chads you see in movies, and then this Chad is someone who there's nothing analytical about the character at all. So
we're going to have to see how many comments we get from people named Chad.
Anybody named Chad. And even
trying to issue a rebuttal there.
We'll see. If anybody named Chad that does not act like this, please let us. There's no offense to the Chads of the world, but we're going by the Chad, by like soap opera Chads, and teen show Chads, and now Bachelor Chads. And there's a name, Clint is also one of those names. And what else is there? There's another name that seems to come up often. the Brendans, um, and there's some other names like that where they tend to always end up being like the kind of like preppy kind of preppy jock kind of going after girls or whatever, but it's always the same. And then later on, if they're played by an older character, it ends up being that same type of character, just older. So it's just kind of funny, but it's kind of interesting to think about, like how we all kind of what kinds of things that we like to watch and what we like to be entertained by. I know for me, part of the reason why I was attracted to the fashion world and beauty world was because it was a form of escape. It was a way that I could get uh, kind of like to open a magazine and kind of see things that, whether it was some model that's modeling some gorgeous gown and some beautiful setting or somewhere, or it's somebody that's in a disco, or that somebody, or that was, I mean, there were things, certain images that would stand out to me, and they were sort of like showing me, well, a lifestyle of something that I wanted to create. Or when you open up a decor magazine and say, this is how I want my home to look, or we have certain, there was sort of as aspirational in a way. But what I found, I mean, the problem is when you work in the fashion world and the beauty world, and I mean, with anything, it just like you could say with acting, it's hard work. There's lots of times where you might be working with a director you might not like, or or you might have things that going on behind the scenes that create problems, and it's not all 100%. Sometimes it's a 13-hour shoot, like you were saying when you were an extra in the PBS show. You had to lay on the floor, and it was dirty, and it was cold, and it was
You have to suffer for your art.
you have to suffer for art. And when in the beauty world, I mean, there was a lot of backstabbing, and a lot of it, even though if you're creating beauty and making other people feel beautiful, there's often the dark side. It's sort of like I always equate it to be is you put on a show for the people who are the audience, who the people who you are working on or you're creating for, but behind the scenes it's like a backstage of a theater or a backstage of a circus, and there's a whole lot of things going on behind the scenes that people don't know about, and once you're involved with that aspect of it, then it becomes very dark to be around it all the time. So to me, that's always been the kind of the duality of it is, if you're creating beauty, you're creating something really cool, you're creating something, but people don't realize that there's all this other stuff that happens to create that, that happens behind the scenes, and for me, what the thing was, there's the art itself, which is cool, but then there's sometimes the egos of the other people that you're doing it with, the personality clashes, the actual physical hard work of whether you have to be filming the same stunt 25 times and your back hurts, or you're on your feet all day long and your back hurts. But either way, you're suffering for your art, and you're pleasing the director, or you're pleasing the customer, or you're pleasing this, but physically it's a lot of work, and the other people are there for the same amount of time, and they're stressed and physically worn out, and personalities fly, and tensions fly, and personalities go crazy, and so the things happen like that, and so that's something that I always felt has always been the tough balance of suffering for the art, or after a while you say, is the art, is the outcome worth it? I guess, but it's one thing when you're the one creating it, as opposed to being the person who is just the viewer or being entertained by it. Is there's a duality there.
If you feel a sense of accomplishment in what you've achieved and what you put before the audience, and the experience that you had while doing it, then yes, it is worth it.
Right. So that's sort of like how I feel when I have clients that I really enjoy working with, or the times when I really enjoyed being in the beauty world or in the fashion world is when I was working with a really great team, and those people we really gave each other a lot of good support, and we did our best work that way, and we put out the energy was right, and I did my best work during that time period, but sometimes it's very hard just like a good cast and a good director and a good team. You can do your best work, but it doesn't always have there's no guarantee that you're always going to have that, but you still have to keep. The hardest thing is you still have to keep doing it and keep plugging away. So anyway, I think it pretty much wraps up what we're talking about. So I hope you all have a good weekend, and just let me know what you like. If you like the more of the makeup stuff, or you like us the discussions, and we may do some other things. We may do some other skits and some other cool stuff coming up. So anyway, we'll see you next week, and take care. Thanks. Bye.